Hey guys, welcome to Fit Town Jupiter. I'm Coach Andrew, and today we're going to be talking about how to master strict pull-ups and push-ups. Pull-ups and push-ups are one of the most foundational skills that we have in fitness, and it's something that's going to come up in various places in your life. So it's two things that we really want to master, but it's two things that a lot of people struggle to get, and some people have the goal of getting their first real legitimate pull-up or push-up and never get there. So we want to help you guys get there today, give you guys six areas of focus, six big mistakes that we see people making when working on pull-ups and push-ups that you guys can focus on to get them eventually. So number one thing is that we want you guys to always train full range of motion. And I see a lot of times people are doing lots of reps, but very few of those reps are done at full range of motion. And then what happens is the range of motion that you're missing, the ones that you're not, the part of the movement you're not hitting, becomes the part that you never get because you're never exposed to it. So what we often see with push-ups is that people will cut themselves off before they hit the ground. They might stop an inch or two before the ground. They might stop 3 or 4 inches from the ground. And if you're doing push-ups correctly, you're going to feel your chest hit the ground. You don't need to ask me or a coach whether you're doing your push-ups legitimate or not. You will feel your chest hit the ground. You might feel your thighs lightly graze the ground. If you're doing a nice plank position, you shouldn't rest your thighs on the ground. But that is how you know that you're doing that full range of motion on the push-up. For the pull-up, what we often see is that people will jump into their reps. Okay, it might look something like that, where they think they're doing a strict pull-up, not a jumping pull-up, but they're jumping into those reps. Or they go to do the rep, and maybe they stop themselves a little short. That chin doesn't get quite to the bar, and they'll just keep repping out, repping out, repping out. And it's much better for you to actually rest at that point, stop doing your reps, and then restart when you're able to do that full range of motion again. So always train that full range of motion. Second thing that we want to do is we want to use proper technique and engage the right muscle groups. And what we're talking about there is trying to get the big muscles to do the work, okay? So in the push-ups, it's the chest, then the shoulders, then the triceps. In the pull-ups, that big mover is those lats. We want to get those lats going. So with those pull-ups, what we often see is that people are pulling from this relaxed shoulder position where her shoulders are up in her ears, and we want to have the shoulders pulled away from the ears, doing that first scap pull-up, and then pull from that position there. So by having those shoulders depressed, it allows us to use those big lats in our back. On the push-ups, what we commonly see is that see this a lot more with women, but men do this as well, where they get a wider setup with the hands, and then the elbows really flare out, and they're way up in their shoulders and traps in terms of the muscle groups they're using, as opposed to getting that nice 45-degree angle where the elbows are tracking slightly in, and you're working more of the chest, shoulders, and triceps, which are really going to develop strongly with this movement. The third big mistake that we see is that people will show up to the gym and they'll do the same version of push-ups or the same version of pull-ups every single time they train him, okay? And that might look like something like ring rows. They go to grab the ring rows and they want to get stronger for pull-ups, and every single time they do them at the same angle. They get a nice 45-degree angle, they kind of rep it out, not really thinking about what they're engaging, and they never have days where they're overloading or underloading. And that's the theme of this next point is there needs to be days where you overload, which simply means you want to be doing less reps at a harder difficulty. And then you want to have days where you underload, which is going to be more reps at an easier difficulty. So for something like those rings, you want to have days where you actually step back further and make it easier, but you do more reps. And then you want to have those days where you really walk it under, and you might only do a couple reps at a time, but you really challenge that, and every rep is super, super hard. Okay? For stuff like, we'll talk about accessory movements here in a second, but for stuff like bench press, for bent over rows, grabbing those same weights every time is not going to get you to get stronger in those movements. You have to challenge the weight. You have to go a little bit heavier and overload those movements. And then actually with experienced people that have a couple reps, what I think they mess up is they don't underload enough. So once you have 2 or 3 strict pull-ups, if you're only working 2 or 3 reps at a time, it may not be enough volume for you to get stronger. And if you on some days grab the band and do sets of 8 to 10 pull-ups, then that way you're underloading the movement on those days, getting more high repetition, high volume, and then you have those days where you're doing 2 to 3 at a time, or even weighting the movement and doing a heavy single at other times. Our next big thing that people miss when trying to get push-ups and pull-ups is varying planes of motion, okay? When we talk about planes of motion, we're talking about things like the ring row, okay? So for some people, they only do ring rows and they don't do enough hanging on the bar. And then for some people, they do only stuff hanging on the bar and they don't do enough ring rows. And what we're talking about is what plane are you pulling in? That pull-up is a vertical motion from above your head down to the shoulders. That ring row is coming from out in front of you to the chest or to those shoulders. Same with the bent over row. That's more of that horizontal plane where we're pulling from in front of us back to us. Okay? Another one that we like in accessory movement is the single arm high pull or upright row. Okay? Another good pulling motion. It's going to work more of the traps and the shoulders, but those accessory muscle groups are going to help you guys get your pull-ups. For push-ups, that might look like doing some heavy strict presses. Okay? Double arm, single arm, some with the barbell, some with the dumbbell, right? Varying those planes of motion is going to be really key. It could look like an incline press, it could look like bench press and push-ups, and doing that at different angles. The fifth thing that you want to do to get your pull-ups and push-ups is add in accessory work. All right, so now we're talking about those little muscle groups or maybe those uncommon movements that are still compound movements that are going to develop those things that might not be hit as well when you're just doing pull-ups and push-ups. And some of the big ones that we like, a bicep curl. Okay, if you want to get pull-ups and you want to get those biceps, the grip, the forearms to get stronger, doing some bicep curls or some forearm work, you could do wrist extension, wrist rolls, things like that are going to be awesome for that. Even things like with the band, doing some band pull-aparts is awesome, or some lat pull-downs. All those accessory movements are really going to help. And then for push-ups, one of my favorites is doing dips. So you can do dips on the rings, you could do them on a box, and also doing some tricep work with the band. So it could be something like a tricep extension. Those accessory movements are really going to help nail down those secondary muscles that help facilitate those more compound movements. And then the final thing that will help you guys get your pull-ups and push-ups is to consider weight loss, okay? And this is not the case for everybody. If you're at a good body fat percentage, I'm not encouraging you to try to lose weight to make that your way of getting pull-ups and push-ups. Work on those other 5 things. But if you know you have a good 10, 15, 20 or more pounds to lose, then that is going to be the number one thing that's going to keep you from getting those pull-ups and push-ups. You know, you can think of it like having a weight vest on. If we were to slap a weight vest on Amanda of 10, 15, 20 pounds, her pull-ups might go from a few to less than few, maybe 0. So that's something to think about. Every 5 pounds is going to make a really huge difference when it comes to strict pull-ups and push-ups. So work on these other things, work on those 5 things, but definitely take into consideration that it might be a nutrition and a weight loss issue that's going to help facilitate it. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you find it helpful, and we'll see you on the next video.